Okay, you're live, Dr. Hamdani.
Thank you so much for coming today to this talk. My name is Saida Hamdani, and I'm going to talk on nutrition in children. The format is I'm just going to spend about half an hour, and I'll just take you through, the continuum of birth to 18 years. And then we'll just touch briefly on the kind of problems that can arise, and then the rest of the time we'll just talk about any questions. There'll be a Q&A session, anything you want to know about. I'll just sort of like a concept map, touch briefly on different things. So, man is what he eats. A healthy outside starts from the inside. So, of course, why is nutrition important? It's all about mizan. It's balance. The idea is to achieve harmony and balance in the body and provide the right nutrients so that the body is vigorous and strong, the brain is strong, and we do not develop chronic illnesses, and our mood is regulated. And the Quran and Hadith highlight the blessings of food and water. They give directions on balance, avoiding excess, the benefits of certain foods, and even the approach to eating. So, from the very beginning, we can model good nutrition and eating habits. And some examples are starting with Bismillah, mindful eating, practicing gratitude for the food, slower eating, chewing well, it releases certain digestive enzymes, eating together as a family, eating away from devices, very important. And that's the challenge for many of us, because we've got the picky eaters who just really need that incentive of YouTube and things like that. So, and we'll go over ways to get away from the devices with eating, more details to follow. So, prior to birth, actually, nutrition starts a year before the baby's conceived. Not before the baby's born. A year before the baby's conceived, we are working on nutrition for that baby. And the way we do that is folic acid. So that prevents neural tube defects, cleft palate, limb deformities. So the young woman who gets married, hoping to have children, starts the multivitamins right away. And then during pregnancy, you want to avoid a diet with bottom feeder fish, because we really want to avoid the mercury, which is toxic to the nervous system. And then the mother is expected to eat, the pregnant woman actually is supposed to eat 300 more calories than baseline, 60 grams of protein a day. I'm just going to zip through this a bit quickly. First 12 months, basically it's that transition between baby breastfeeding or formula feeding, and then by 1 year they're eating what you're eating. And how do we transition? Well, the first 6 months is milk heavy, because that is just critical for the baby's brain and nervous system. And the only thing that we do for breastfed babies is we supplement with vitamin D, because breast milk is low in that. And then around 4 to 6 months, based on the baby's cues, we start to introduce solids. We tend to also start allergenic foods around 5 months, peanut butter and eggs to prevent allergies. And then we go from purees till about 9 months, when the baby can pinch the grafts, so the baby can pick something up. At that point, the throat and the larynx is developed enough to handle finger food, and the cherry is a bit too big. And we then, from then on, In the old days, in the very, very old days, people would start babies on, you know, food from your plate. And then the pendulum swung to where, it was, beware of allergies, introduce food very slowly, one new food every 3 or 4 days. And now the pendulum is swung back again, and we're doing a lot of baby-led weaning. So basically, it's like let the child experience the textures and the joy of eating, and introduce the foods, and let the child hold it, feel the textures, eat it, slobber off it, and just make sure the baby is not choking. I mean, the high liquid work. And of course, there are a lot of people who are comfortable with getting very, very big chunks of food, and then we basically just puree table food. But we start fairly early, around 6 months, giving, broths and, um, food with meat and chicken and things like that for those who are meat eaters. Iron checks are needed typically between 6 months to a year because iron stores fall after 6 months in breastfed babies. And iron is very important for intellect and IQ. So chronic iron deficiency can be a problem and we can lose some points of IQ. So really important to monitor. Whole milk at 1 year, so switching from formula or breast milk. And then basically once the baby is 1 year, and then you know we can start multivitamins and things like that. But prior to that, not necessary. And a detailed feeding guide is available, on request. And then just a few words on why we give certain foods to young children. Well, fats are brain food. They supply fuel and they help in development of the brain. And they also help in absorption of vitamins, and a large number of our hormones are made out of fat. Cholesterol is that building block, and then the different hormones made from that. What about protein? There's a lot of talk about protein, animal protein versus plant-based protein. What's the difference? Well, there are 20 essential amino acids that we need to repair tissue, to build muscle, and the essential amino acids are found in animal protein completely. In plant protein, you don't have all those essential amino acids, but with the right combination, you can achieve them. So that is something to keep in mind. And why is protein important apart from, um, apart from building tissue, repairing injury? Well, some of these amino acids have unique properties. For example, tryptophan is an amino acid that you find mainly in animal protein, although it's found in some plant products like soy. And it goes through the blood-brain barrier and it makes serotonin. And that is the neurotransmitter responsible for anxiety and depression. So if you have enough serotonin, you're not going to be likely to feel overwhelmed, isolated, panic attacks, extreme irritability, things like that. And serotonin converts to melatonin, so you're going to have a good sleep cycle. And if you have a good sleep cycle, where you have your own proper regulated circadian rhythm, you're going to be refreshed, you're going to learn well, you're going to have a better mood, so it kind of all works together. So that's tryptophan. Then there are, like methionine is also involved in, making different neurotransmitters. Dopamine is made by those essential amino acids, and it's the focus neurotransmitter in the brain. And then there's some other nutrients, vitamin A, important for growth and vision, vitamin D, It actually functions almost like a hormone. It helps with mood, it helps with the immune system, it helps with building bone, and collagen. It's involved in building blood vessels, so it's kind of vital overall to overall health. And strangely enough, even though we are sunny in California, the majority of Californians are deficient in vitamin D. So that's something to keep in mind. Then we'll talk about where you get all these different things from. Iron, the job of iron is to basically carry around oxygen in red blood cells. That oxygen is taken to tissues from the lungs. Calcium needed for strong bones and health. And magnesium is another one like vitamin D, which has a lot of different benefits. It helps sleep, digestion, combats constipation, good for mood, good for energy, good for concentration, bone and teeth health, and the immune system. So quick little talk about toddler and preschool nutrition. The first 1,000 days of life are that highly sensitive period of time when children learn to accept foods and the imprinting that we do. It sort of takes place at that time, and it's some general principles are not to feed the child constantly. This system of raising where, they're having some goldfish and they're having some raisins and they have a bit of juice. And so that's not a great way to feed a toddler because they never full, they're never quite hungry, but they fill up on kind of low quality foods. The ideal way to feed a toddler is 4 meals a day, 3 hours apart, protein, fat, heavy, carbs they're going to have no problems getting. And, there should be water or milk with meals. We don't want juice ever for children. Juice is just sugar and water with a little bit of vitamins in it. And it tends to raise the blood sugar level and then cause a reflex insulin coming in, taking the blood sugar out, and they get a rebound low blood sugar. So they get these highs and lows with juices. So we really like to avoid juices, sugary processed foods, and device feeding, which is, as we all know, just, please eat your food and I'm going to put that in the tiger off. The other thing that many of us have done with our kids is following them around with a plate, feeding them, just like one more bite. And ideally, we like them to eat in one place, in a high chair, we put the food there, there's a system, and it's 4 times a day, and then we create hunger between so that they are excited to eat. So a little bit of hunger is a good thing for toddlers, but we want to catch them before they're extremely hungry and in that sort of tantrum mode. So that's 3 hours. Consider daily multivitamin because toddlers tend not to eat balanced meals. They're not always eating a lot of fruits and vegetables. Okay, so special considerations. So we can talk more about that. Picky eaters, small eaters. What are the techniques? Well, a lot of times they're drinking excessive milk because the parents are worried that if they don't get anything, they'll just lose weight. So that actually kills hunger, and milk is relatively low calorie for a toddler because they're not newborns anymore. So we want them to have dense meals 4 times a day, high calorie meals. So one of the meals could be a high calorie smoothie or warm milk, but loaded with all kinds of different things, which we'll go over. So that's one of those things. Another thing is, not eating at daycare. So they eat breakfast, and then the whole day they don't eat. And then they come home at 3, they're starving, they're temper tantruming. And how do we deal with that? And we'll talk about this in the Q&A session. Then there's issues with constipation, overweight, underweight, gluten intolerance, lactose intolerance, anemia, food allergies, autism, behavioral issues around eating, just carb craving. So any of those questions we'll attack. What's the strategy with school age kids? Well, the easiest way is to plan ahead. So you plan meals ahead with a master list, and then you just use that master list to grocery shop. You plan for 4 to 5 meals a day, so breakfast, lunch at school, after dinner, snack, dinner, and then often dinner is a poor meal, and then they have their bath, and then they are hungry again. So they get that fifth meal, and so plan for that. Um, and So the breakfast idea is you typically want to protein load, because then they're in school, they're not going to eat a lot of protein, and the protein kind of carries them through the day. And then at 3 o'clock you protein load again, and then dinner is kind of regular. Lunchbox ideas to follow. Dinner should always have some fat in it and protein, because that knocks them out. It just pulls the blood towards the intestines, and they get busy and sleepy. And then that's what we want. Okay, so high calorie ideas. I just put those in because so many of us have struggled with children who just want to eat cucumbers and carrots, and they don't want to eat heavy meals, and they're thin, and they're not gaining weight. And so what are some tricks with those? Well, one of the tricks is, those balls, where you take dates, coconut, honey, almond butter, salt, walnut, macadamia, pecans, and then you can add in oats, you can add in milk, and you just melt, cook it in a pan, just a little bit melt, form balls and freeze. And if they're low in protein, you can add whey or, collagen to that, halal collagen. And then they just come out like date balls. They're delicious. They're good for lunch boxes. A very nice afternoon idea, because we don't want to give them cold things at night, is the high-calorie smoothie. And that is typically something like milk or Orgain or Kate Farm, which is 300 calories, with some almond butter, a little bit of coconut oil, banana, mangoes, hemp seeds or chia seeds, spinach, dates, honey, plus minus avocado. And then, things like sweet potato fries made at home in your air fryer so they're not super greasy. Rice, lentils, and butter with brown roasted cashews for vegetarians. Mac and cheese with ground beef. Milkshakes, healthy milkshakes. Pancakes are great because you can put in whatever you want and they just turn out right. So you can put in ricotta, you can put in Greek yogurt, you can put in, extra egg whites, you can put in protein powder. So whatever the child is missing, you just throw it in there, and they'll do well on it. The trick for when you have a child who's a picky eater, not getting enough calories, there's a little bit of a tendency to just get them like junk, like just chips and this, like whatever they need. But the thing is, resist that and try to, because we're imprinted, and so we want them, they're going to become adults, they'll be eating in the dorms, we want them to be eating nutritious food, food that's good for them, that does good to them, as well as tastes good. So we want to avoid those excessively fried, or nitrites or things like that, hot dogs and things like that. Lunch tip ideas for school-going kids. You want to mix and match to suit your taste. Variety, think outside the sandwich. You can use tortillas, flatbread, pita, bagels, homemade muffins. You can add vegetables, whatever you want into it, nuts. Adjust the portion size according to the age of the child. Often we start out with toddlers and we're still giving them toddler size portions and we want to start moving out a bit. And then food safety, if you're packing perishables, you can use frozen yogurt or kefir cultures to keep things cool. Use leftovers, finger foods, and then you want to really move away from synthetic or very processed foods. So Lunchables, Uncrustables, those kind of foods are not great. You just want to make your own bento box and fill it with, colorful fun foods. Lunchbox fillers, the best place to get ideas is Pinterest. And just all kinds of stuff. Puff pastry with cheese and spinach and or meat, healthy sandwiches, wraps, leftovers from dinner, bean and cheese quesadillas, healthy muffins, hard-boiled eggs, chickpea veggie patties, Greek yogurt. Protein is a hard one at lunchtime. And generally what we do is things like rotisserie chicken or chicken salad or protein muffins, leftover steak slices, stir-fried chicken, wraps with beef or turkey, that kind of stuff. Okay, eating for sports. We are looking, our athletes need 300 to 500 calories at least more. Otherwise, they start to get into calorie deficits and they lose weight. If you have a case where you have an athlete who's also on a stimulant, one of the medications they use for improving focus, then their appetite is low, they're not eating as much, it becomes a real challenge to get those calories in. And that's where we want to use those smoothies, those balls, those, get creative. We really want to avoid dieting if the athlete is in an intense sport. We want to make sure they're getting enough calcium and vitamin D. That prevents stress fractures, iron, improves oxygenation to the muscles, more protein, and we really want to avoid low carb and keto diets. We also want to avoid things like creatine, anabolic steroids, salt tablets. All these things can be harmful to children. Typically, you want to eat 30 minutes after intense activity and then 2 hours after. Hydrate with water, avoid caffeine, and avoid things like Gatorade, the so-called sports drinks. Those are not sports drinks. They are just commercially marketed. It's better to have something like water and orange slices and something with a little salt, because you will, get your sodium, your potassium in the water without the excessive sugar, which kind of drives you out and impairs performance actually. So moving on to the immune system, there are about 10 foods that are just wonderful for the immune system. They're berries, fish oil, leafy greens, nuts and seeds, our spices, ginger, garlic, turmeric, cinnamon, coriander. They all have antioxidants. Chicken has something called carnosine, which protects against the flu virus specifically. And that's why people take chicken soup. Fish oil, helps with the defense of the body with white cells. Elderberry, fermented foods, there's certain mushrooms, and then olive oil. What about eating for more focused brain? Breakfast, always. And then, fish. It's supposed to be really, really good for the brain. Fish and fish oil. green leafy veggies. They have beta carotene and they have flavonoids, which boost cognitive function. Iron-rich foods. Nuts and seeds prevent low thyroid and they boost the brain. And then dairy has that lots and lots of tryptophan, which helps with all the three neurotransmitters in the brain. For a focused brain, we want to avoid dyes, MSG, high fructose corn syrup. We want to avoid artificial sweeteners, things like that. So what are signs of imbalanced nutrition? Weight changes, weight loss, weight gain, all-day fatigue, irritability, irregular menstrual cycles, frequent daytime headaches, symptoms like that, tooth decay, low appetite, and very often people will bring children in to me because they're fatigued, and the concern is they got mono or they got some other, about COVID or something like that. When we take the diet history, it turns out that they're just sort of carb binging all day long. So the typical um, teenage diet here that I see when patients come in is they either don't have breakfast or they grab a banana and then they'll mooch off their friends, especially if it's a girl. They don't want to eat in front of others. And then they go home and it's 3 o'clock and then they will have a few crackers and skinny pop. And then dinner, they have a good meal. But then the snacking starts up again till about 11 o'clock. So what happens is they don't have enough tryptophan, they're not making melatonin, they're not sleeping well. And so they sleep late, they have difficulty falling asleep, difficulty staying asleep, difficulty waking up in the morning, they're sleepy midday, and then they get their second wind when they come home. And so it's just sort of this fatigue and irritability and just kind of feeling overwhelmed. So that's middle aisle foods in the supermarket. So that is, candy, cookies, um, sugary foods, frosted flakes, toaster pastries, popsicles, those kind of things. Why? Because they're really, there are 3 or 4 reasons. One is they set the child up into this cycle of high blood sugar, triggers insulin. Insulin is a hormone that comes in, it's a policeman for blood sugar. It takes all the blood sugar out, carries it to the liver and stores it as fat, and then the child is suddenly low blood sugar and craving carbs again. So 90 minutes later, they want another popsicle, they want a chocolate or a sugary food. The same thing happens, and then they are generally just storing fat, or they just don't have enough sustained energy to grow. So they end up just burning, have bursts of energy, but there's this fluctuation of the blood sugar in their brains, which is not good for them. Then we like to avoid processed meats because the nitrates are implicated in causing cancer. So we're talking about sausages and pepperoni and all those kind of things. And there are a lot of our halal foods which are, those sausages, and they're like, they look so good and they seem to be such a good source of protein, but we have to remember that everything with balance and very, very little of those for our children. Because they have a long life ahead of them and we just want to protect them. Want to avoid bottom feeders. Caffeine in special circumstances. Why do I say that? Why don't I say never? Because there are some situations where sometimes the afternoon focus. Kids will benefit. Older kids sometimes have to take a little tea to help with afternoon focus. Why? Because tea is different from coffee. It has theanine, um, which is an amino acid that is calming to the nervous system, and it takes the buzz of the caffeine away. But so they get the alertness of the caffeine with the calming. And so in special circumstances where we're having issues with focus on the afternoons and we don't want to use any special things, we will sometimes do a little bit of tea before 4 o'clock. We like to avoid, trans fats, deep fried foods, increased inflammation, sports drinks, etc. And then we go to this, these are just questions that may come up, special considerations. I've got some websites for you. So the one I love is Nourish and Productive. That is wonderful. It's a wonderful site for parents. It's got things like, what do you want to put on your grocery list for children? How do you teach kids about the benefit of vegetables? How do you get them hooked into, all those things? How do you get them excited about, milk, or what's too much milk? They just sort of answer all those questions. The format is so fun and easy to read. It's not boring. The other one that's great is Kids Health. It's Neighbors Foundation. It's fantastic, very, very knowledgeable. My plate is, Michelle Obama kind of started that. It's that nutrition, the government website. It's very informative. And First Five of California has amazing information, developmental as well as nutritional for the first 5 years. And then, of course, Pinterest for menu ideas. And in conclusion, we want to get kids engaged. So we engage them, eat together, keep the setting light and cheerful, especially when we have teens. Hold the tough issues for later so that there isn't an aversion of eating and being with the family. Practice gratitude, don't overfill plates. Don't worry too much if meals aren't balanced, just keep working at it. Use white plates. They make the food look better. To children, or light-colored plates. Sort of stay in tune with what your child can like and tolerate. Eat outdoors, food tastes better. Give them lots of fruit and read labels. And I think I will end it with the questions.
Thank you so much.
Okay. So, any questions?
That was wonderful, very important. I always wonder between organic and non-organic. Do you have an opinion?
Yeah, great. Great question. So organic food is better, but it's not always affordable or available. And it is better because there are no pesticides. It's farmed, differently. Um, so ideally, organic is far superior. Now, milk doesn't have to be organic. It just has to be hormone free. So you want to look for RBSD free. It doesn't really have to be organic, but and neither does meat necessarily have to be organic, but it's better. But the fruit and vegetable, there's a difference in taste in those. Anyway, our meat is organic because we get it halal. But the fruits and vegetables, there really is a difference in taste and quality, and don't have that exposure to pesticides, which long term can be neurotoxic.
So regarding the an alternative to that, or can they drink chocolate milk? Is it as good or no?
Great. So I'm going to actually answer two questions there. One of the questions is, and I think, a lot of people bring plant milk, like almond milks and nut milks as well. So I'm going to actually add that in there. So milk, so if a child has an aversion to milk, you can get by with cheese and yogurt. Generally speaking, children need about 2 to 3 dairy servings a day. The younger ones 3, the older ones 2. And if you have a choice, if they'll take yogurt, it's better than the chocolate milk. Because the chocolate milk is often sweetened with corn syrup and things like that. So, and then what about this whole thing with almond milk and oat milk and so on? What do you think of that? What do you all think of that?
Plants don't make milk.
Positive inflammation, that's what I hear a lot, but also I've also heard that it's fine for kids, maybe adults it's harder for us to process, and a lot of people just complain about lactose intolerance as they get older.
Yeah.
I think those milks do not replace cow's milk in any way whatsoever.
Yeah.
They're just like namesake milk, but then what you're actually doing, the process that's done to make those milk, is like you're just soaking them and then grinding them and taking, you're not even taking the pulp of it, you're taking the water which you add when you're grinding them. So it naturally just loses all the nutrients. So it's just like, I would say it's a scam out there.
You're so right. It's true. So the thing is, nothing natural about oat milk, cashew milk, almond milk. On the contrary, there's some concern about cyanide because in old almonds you can get cyanide, and then the machines just gather them all up and crush them, and then put them, add potassium sorbate, and then they put flavoring, and then it comes out like this lovely creamy nutty thing which has 0 nutrients, and then they've added calcium. So yes, 100% agree with you. Milk, if you're lactose intolerant, take lactose-free milk or goat milk. Or a lactate pill before you take dairy. Goat milk is a bit more constipating and it's a little bit more gamey. It has a bit more of a gamey flavor. What about soy milk? What do you think of soy milk? Inflammatory, and it's got estrogen in it. So you can actually have girls go into premature pregnancy with because it's got plant estrogen in it. Yeah. So that's why the answer is, if children don't like milk, you can disguise it. You can do, if they like chocolate milk, you can make a milkshake, but put in fruit and, put in other things, peanut butter or whatever, just make it more attractive to them, as opposed to the commercial thing where it's really kind of a syrupy thing with it's generally made with low-fat milk, so it's not, and it's very, very sweet, and it just sort of sends up that blood sugar. Yeah. A lot of times, children who don't like milk have a low level of lactose intolerance, so they get tummy aches, but they can't verbalize that they have tummy aches. So they just basically say they don't like milk. And so trying lactose-free milk, and the way you try it is you try it in oatmeal or you try it in something else that's not in their face. Any other questions?
So in terms of food allergies, when kids are developing allergies, is it a good idea to cut it out completely versus is it possible to desensitize them by introducing slowly?
So it depends on what the allergen is. If the allergen is peanut, then generally speaking, you should, and you have a pretty intense reaction. The concern is anaphylactic, and people do not grow out of peanut allergies in general with allow desensitization. So that is generally managed by an allergist. However, if it's an egg allergy, children often, almost always grow up with egg allergy. And if it's not very intense, then what typically people do is they will give it in the baked form. Or they'll give very, very little, but it's baked, not cooked. And then they'll keep the child on baked egg for a while. And then after 1 year or 15 months, they'll experiment with a little bit of cooked egg. And sometimes they'll do that on their own, and sometimes with the help of an allergist.
So you have been talking about adding protein to the pancakes. So I was wondering if I can give a child with less than 2 protein, and which kind of protein powder can I use for the age?
Yeah. So I wouldn't give like 1 kilo protein powders, but if they are close to 2, I would do very little. So generally speaking, no more than, because the adult dose of protein powder is 20 grams. And so a 2-year-old is 1/5 of an adult in weight. So I would give no more than, so I would give about 4 grams at the most, 4 or 5 grams.
Of any type of protein powder, or
So you can do, I wouldn't do pea protein because it creates gas for children. I would do either whey protein or collagen. Yeah, and collagen has no aftertaste. The other thing people will do is just do extra egg whites if the child is not allergic. Because 1 egg white is about 5 grams of protein. Yeah, so you can get, it's 5 to 7 grams of protein. It's actually closer to 7 grams. So if you do like 2 egg whites, that's 14 grams right there. Yeah.
One of the slides mentioned avoiding green smoothies. Can you explain?
Yeah, so these green smoothies that are commercially prepared, they're so sugary, they're so sweet. So they have, yes, spirulina, they have a little spinach and then a little kale, but then the rest of it is just like so sugary and so sweetened to make it palatable. So you can make your own green smoothie with banana, mango, a little bit of milk, spinach, and then give it to them in an opaque glass so they can't see the color. It works.
What about the teenagers that they play sports, very active, but what they like to always drink milk with cereal, sugary cereal, the
Yes.
chocolate one, the frosted flakes one, and they don't listen. So what we should do with this?
So, the way you want to do it is, you want to make sure with the teenager they're getting the basic requirements. If they're thin, if they're on the thinner side, then I wouldn't make a big fuss over that because they're gonna burn it.
Yeah.
So how do you make sure they're making the basic? With a teenager, they must have breakfast. No intermittent fasting. Unless it's Ramadan. But breakfast, they must have breakfast and it should be protein loaded. And then lunch, you do the best you can. 3 o'clock is the next big meal. So at 3, you don't do a snack. You're literally going to give them dinner, which is, kebab and potatoes and flatbread and stuff. Hummus and things like that. You give them like every meal at 3. And then they have dinner, and then typically teenage boys, they get really, really hungry when they're growing, and they can't crave. And that's okay because they've taken their load, they've done what they need.
So speaking of sports, so
for better performance, I think you in the slides you were talking a little bit about food like after or the drinks to hydrate. But what about before? And do you do a heavier protein base and like where does that interfere with them?
It depends on the sport. But generally speaking, you don't want to take that heavy meal because you can't perform.
Yeah.
So generally it's a small meal, it's a snack, half an hour before. 2 hours before you take a good meal, half an hour before you could take a small snack, and then 2 hours after you eat. Yeah. How about, does anyone have questions about vegan, vegetarian? I think it's more of a teenage kind of thing. Yeah. Let's see. I think mostly we have preschool questions, right? A lot of, let me see what else. How about anemia? What if you have an anemic kid with low iron? What kind of foods do you want to give to an anemic kid?
Lentils.
Yeah. What if the child doesn't like meat, and that's why they got anemic in the first place?
Spinach.
Good.
Apple.
Okay. Okay.
Pomegranates.
What else?
Pomegranates.
Yes. What else?
Beans.
Beans. Beans. What else, guys?
Sweet potato.
Yeah. Lentils. Beans, lentils. Chickpeas. Molasses. Sweeten your food with molasses. Use a cast iron skillet. Pumpkin seeds. Vegetables. Yes, vegetables are very good. Good job. And egg yolks. So eggs, basically. Yeah. And then there are some plant-based liquid irons. It's called Floradix, which is a little bit easy on the tummy. I use it for teenagers sometimes. It's a little bit easier to digest than iron pills. So we get those from Whole Foods. That tends to be good. They've come out with iron patches now. So we'll see. We don't have much experience with those, but they work on them. Yeah. Um, how about kids who, does anyone have questions about restrictors, restricted eating? People kids who don't like to eat. I don't think that's really so much an issue.
This might be a specific situation, but so my daughter, sometimes she doesn't have a full meal at dinner. She's distracted and the food's there, but she's not eating. Normally she likes it, but she's playing and whatnot. And then she'll wake up, she's weaned already, but she'll wake up in the middle of the night hungry. So what do you recommend?
Yeah. So what I say with that is, load her up, get 4 meals in, kind of by 6. So like, make sure she has breakfast, lunch at 3 o'clock. She has a heavy meal. Don't worry too much about dinner, but give her a bedtime meal which is heavy in tryptophan and fat. So the ideal thing would be turkey, cheese, and avocado. And if she's in diapers, a little warm milk. And then she'll knock her out.
So I have a question. It's regarding immunity. There is a flu virus going around. So do you recommend elderberry supplement and syrup? And also, do you recommend plain yogurt or flavored yogurt? Mostly, kids like flavored yogurt.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So elderberry. So the immune system thing that I often tell parents is a good multivitamin, extra vitamin D, extra vitamin C, but not too much, otherwise you could get into kidney stones. And then, um, an orange a day, an apple a day, those two are very good. And berries, daily berries, elderberry, great, zinc, a little bit great, but not necessary for the kids. And then there are other things like roasted garlic is supposed to be extremely good for roasted garlic, a little bit of honey. All these things are preventative, not like when you get an illness. There is, if you're into holistic things, there is something called Child Life First Defense Immune Booster, which is, you can get it off Amazon or, yeah, and it's supposed to, and it's actually pretty effective. It's got a combination of herbs and things which really kind of stimulate the immune system in a good way.
You just talked about honey. So like how do you choose like which kind is better? Because there's like all
There's so
kinds of-
many.
Yeah.
So honey, never under 1 year. Ideally, I give honey after 2 because of botulism. And local honey tends to be the best if you have a child with allergies. Otherwise, any kind of honey. Malaga honey is supposed to be the best. But I think they're all good. Yeah, they're all good. They all come from that same area of the bee and they have the same healing qualities.
Is it true that if the kid has allergies and if you choose honey made locally, that would help with environmental
Yes,
allergies?
yeah. Because if the child has environmental allergies, pollen allergies, yeah, it can be useful.
Bee pollen is known scientifically to reduce allergy. I mean, even if you can just chew on the seeds, the bee pollen seeds, it helps. So I have a question regarding well-fed kids. Is it okay to completely cut off dairy from their diet because they're like eating good quantities of meat, getting enough protein, and like eating the nutritious things
Right.
like eating baked vegetables and meat?
Right, that's a great question. So, in that case, what you're losing is calcium and vitamin D. So you would probably take a supplement of calcium and vitamin D.
We talked about some things to avoid. It was red dyes, or food dyes, and the other couple things that you mentioned that were.
Yeah.
I wanted to know why they would.
Why?
Like how can that impact our children's growth?
Yeah. So the thing about dyes, MSG, it's a little bit of an old-fashioned view. It's not necessarily any more scientifically supported, but what the feeling was that dyes, constant MSG, hyped children up a bit. And so they affected their focus, and that is sort of being this true, but dyes in general are not natural. They're basically,
The dyes are actually made from like inedible compounds. So they're like extracted, like mostly the red and yellow dyes are extracted from petroleum, which you would never know unless we do an extensive research. But then now you have like dyes which are getting made from like beetroots and like, so those are like, if you can check that on the label, they would mention it that it's like a beetroot dye or something like that. But then it like, when they mention something like red 41, 21 and all those are like inedible compounds. So, I mean, they're not doing any good to society.
how about gluten? Does anyone have questions about gluten? Okay, tell me what.
No, just in terms of if they're not sensitive or
Yeah.
sensitive to it,
Yeah.
still should be avoided.
Yeah. So gluten is one of the harder brains to digest. And we've evolved, different people have evolved through the ancestors and all that. So there's certain groups of people who have enzymes that can break down the gluten very effectively. And they have no issues with it. And then there are others who have more difficulty with it. And that is separate from, celiac, which is an autoimmune disease. And so there are two types of problems with gluten. One is gluten intolerance, and then the other one is gluten sensitivity. And gluten sensitivity is more subtle. You can't really test for it. It's basically, the story is, every time I eat anything, a bread or this or that, I get GI symptoms, or I feel kind of zoned out, or I feel really fatigued, or I get a splitting headache. Those are gluten sensitivity. Celiac is where the child deals with poor growth, chronic constipation, and they have issues with absorption of nutrients. They're chronically anemic, they have bad teeth, they have poor growth of hair, abdominal pain all the time, and other things. And that can be diagnosed by biopsy of the small intestine. Yeah.
So I have a question regarding this, kids, they usually get these white spots on their skin, like you see them very frequently, and then,
Yes.
does that necessarily mean like it's a vitamin deficiency, or could it just be something?
Yes. So what you're talking about is something called pityriasis, which is slightly lighter colored skin, oval patches, usually on the face, sun-exposed areas, never under the clothing. And that has nothing to do with nutrition. It's similar to eczema, and it kind of goes away after puberty. Yeah, so it's a non-issue, but the summer where they're in the pool all the time, it'll be really obvious.
Yeah, but once we look at the beach and
Right, you'll see it, and a little bit of hydrocortisone will make it better, but if you do nothing, all the attention.
So I got for my son the elderberry fortifier, but then he started getting like very loose poop after giving it to him
Right.
in the yogurt and everything.
Right.
So should I stop giving it to him,
His body doesn't like it.
or maybe reduce the amount?
No, I wouldn't give it to him. There's so many other ways to enhance the immune system.
Yeah.
Just with food, I wouldn't necessarily give him that.
Okay.
So what's the relation between gluten and constipation?
Great question. Gluten, the word glue comes from gluten. And what gluten does is it binds the stool and it makes it sticky and thick. And it's because of that gluten protein. That's why even when we eat bread, it's not gluten protein that binds everything together. If you're making gluten-free bread and you put in gluten-free flour and all that, it will bind unless you use something called xanthan. So it's the gluten that pulls everything and binds it. Well, the problem is that it can go into the gut and cause, these basically these stools that are like rocks, and they sit there, and then it's hard for the child to pass them. So they just sit around, and they basically get harder and harder because the job of the large intestine is to take water out of the gut. And so the longer they stay there, the harder they get. And the harder they get, then food from behind is coming in, and that's stuck. So that's getting hard, and eventually you get a colon that's just full of hard stool that's just kind of plugged together. And then eventually the colon will start to stretch, and the stretch receptors stop working, so then the child is not getting messages to the brain saying they need to go. So then it compounds the problem further. So they get into this chronic constipation cycle. And then the way we get rid of it is we clean them out, we change their diet, we lower the gluten, and then we eventually bring the gluten back. And many kids can tolerate that, and there's some kids whose bodies just don't like gluten. And then we just keep them on a lower gluten diet. If they're not celiac, and you can test for celiac with a blood test.
And if they're not celiac and if you're traveling and gluten-free option is not available, can you give gluten in small amount or no gluten?
In that situation, you take Miralax with you and Miralax them like 5 days before the trip and give them gluten.
Then you can give.
Yeah, just Miralax them, give them gluten through the trip, expect that they're going to hold, and but they will not get plugged up because you got them on the Miralax short term.
For kids that have dairy or lactose intolerance, is it a bad idea to give them like yogurt or ghee or butter?
Ghee and butter are perfectly fine because there's no carbohydrate in them. And lactose intolerance is an intolerance to sugar. But the other one, yogurt, some
With
kids
probiotics.
lactose intolerance can handle it. Others can't. If they have too little of the lactase enzyme in their system, they won't be able to handle yogurt. But it's a varying degree of enzyme loss. So those who have enough lactase in their bodies, they'll be able to handle yogurt. But then if you throw ice cream on the top, that's when the problem is.
What if there is a lot of probiotics in it? Would that make a difference?
No, it has nothing to do. It has to do with the lactase enzyme and how much lactase enzyme they have. And you can just give them a lactate. In the old days, they used to have lactate drops. You can just do like a triple lactate, half a tablet, and you should be fine.
Is there a connection between constipation and acid reflux disease?
Yes, there is when the constipation becomes severe. So reflux is when the throat, goes down. So there's the mouth, the throat, then it goes into the esophagus, and then at the bottom of the esophagus is a sphincter that prevents food from coming up. But in about 5% of the population, that sphincter is loose. So food can come up easily. And so that's what reflux is. Reflux is that acid coming up. However, if the person eats and then is not eating constantly throughout the day, but takes kind of specific meals, and then they're kind of upright out there, they're not lying down, not fainting and all that, then it won't come up. But if the intestines are so bulky and they're so plugged up that they've got these logs in them, then you get that back push. The pressure, there's an increased intra-abdominal pressure that forces the acid out. Yeah. So the treatment for that is to get rid of the constipation. And the way constipation is managed is you have to clean them out and then behavioral management, teach them that they need to release, like 3 or 4 times a day.
The disease, like my daughter, when she goes to school, she just holds her emotion. I mean, all the time she would complain that whenever she comes home, then she would go to the bathroom, not in the school. She says there's no water over there.
So that's fine if she goes every day. The problem is if she goes every 4 days or every 3 days, and then it's so big and it's plugging up and things like that, then that's a problem. But if she's going every day, she's evacuating adequately.
But her food is like very hard, like when she evacuates every day.
Yeah. So then it's the diet. Then what you have to do is you have to cut down the gluten, increase fruits and vegetables. So a typical constipation diet would be like an omelet with spinach and bell peppers or things like that in the morning with a glass of low-fat milk, because whole milk,
These things she would not do.
then do a smoothie in the morning with fruits, vegetables, something like that, and then lunch, whatever she'll take. When 3 o'clock, give her a meal, and then put her on fiber gummies and mineral oil, a little bit of mineral oil to lubricate her. Yeah, Miralax. Typically, what you do is you clean her out, and then your goal is not to have her on Miralax all the time. Your goal is to clean her out and then manage her to where she is able to stool and do everything without needing Miralax.
Which mineral oil do you recommend? Any of
Anyway,
olive oil?
olive oil is fine too.
And if she's going daily and pooping without any pushing or pressure, but the stool is much not much bigger, they're a little bit smaller. Is she constipated? But she's going daily at the same time.
And the stools are
The stools are like of this much size.
okay.
Not bigger and not much smaller. And she just went to the restroom and then she'll say, I'm done. She don't have to push hard.
I think that's fine.
That's fine. It's the same time she's pooping every morning before school. I thought maybe the size mattered.
Just because I dealt with this issue and what worked for my son was fruits and papayas and pineapples. They worked as good as Miralax or
Kids don't eat, like my kids appear like
fruit. Have you tried fruits like dried fruits?
juice or more than fruit.
You make fruit juice like that?
No, I just give them the dried plums, which are called fruits. Like you just put them in Costco.
Whole food, right?
Yeah, Costco has like.
And do you recommend fruit juice from Whole Foods?
Fruit
Or
juice
is
is
processed?
fine.
Yeah,
That's
they
one
don't-
of the only juices that's good.
You can buy it. You don't have to make it.
No,
Okay.
you can do it.
And what time? In the morning or when they came back from school?
Yeah, anytime.
And I have one more thing. Do you recommend plain yogurt or flavored yogurt?
Yes, plain yogurt or flavored. Most kids won't take plain.
Yeah.
So,
Flavored.
healthy flavored yogurt. So not
Put honey in it.
super
You can actually do plain yogurt with honey. They just love it. And you can drizzle it on top with a very
No, she just wants to eat Trader Joe's flavored.
Yeah, Trader Joe's yogurt is good.
Yeah, sometimes I make like
Cheese with sugar craving. Sugar craving.
Yeah.
For
And what-
toddlers and elementary, toddlers and.
Sugar craving. So the trick with sugar craving is to protein load, because that kills hunger. And that kind of stabilizes your blood sugar from the swings. So basically, say for breakfast, they're like, I want Lucky Charms. Then the deal is, okay, so a bit of negotiation. So it's like, okay, you've got to have your omelet first, and then if you absolutely have to have your Lucky Charms, just have a little bit, but have your omelet. So then what's going to happen is they won't have that craving, like half an hour, like maybe like an hour later, where they're like, like can we have like, these fruit roll-ups or whatever, and then feed them frequently, because their tummies are small and they can't last till lunchtime. So give them early lunch. So if you feed them at 8, be ready to feed them at 11. And then that way you're catching them before they're getting too low. And once they get too low, game over, we've lost the battle. They're finding the sugar wherever it is.
I have a question.
Sure.
How do the kids get all these Lucky Charms and sugar cereals at home that they want them?
Santa
They
Claus.
were not introduced from the beginning. I don't think they'll ask for it.
Yeah, that's a great question, but
I was actually going to address the same thing. I feel like we underestimate the child's capacity capacity to understand nutrition. They do understand a lot about nutrition. It's about introducing them to nutritional concepts early on so they can choose healthy stuff for themselves. And then you just have to avoid bringing those things home. Like, yeah, they will say, Mama, I want that, Mama, I want that. And then you just calm them down that, no, this is not really healthy for you, it's not going to do anything. And when they see no junk at home, they resort to healthier options because they are hungry. They have to eat. And when they find nothing, that's how they get introduced to eating healthy.
For the longest time, my child thought Halloween candies were toys.
That's very good.
That works when you have one kid. Aisha prayer is in a few minutes, so we still have refreshments and we have the little prize that we want to draw after. So come back, and we also have more questions for Dr. Hamdani. So inshallah, we'll see you.
Thank you.